A single document appears on the National Archives website, page 23 of a batch released under court order, a CIA memo dated January 17th, 1963. Most people scroll past it. Just another administrative record, personnel paperwork, nothing interesting. But Jefferson Morley, a journalist who's spent decades investigating the JFK assassination, sees it differently. He reads line by line, and then he stops. His hands freeze on the keyboard. There it is, in black and white. The proof he's been searching for since 1998. A directive ordering a CIA officer to use an alias, a fake name, a fabricated identity. The alias, Howard Gebler. The officer, George Joannides. For 62 years, the CIA had denied this connection, denied it to Congress, denied it to investigators, denied it under oath. They'd claimed they had no idea who Howard was. No records, no information, no such officer existed. They'd lied, and this memo proved it. Within hours, Morley publishes his findings. The headline reads, CIA admits shadowy officer monitored Oswald before JFK assassination. The story explodes across social media. Conspiracy theorists feel vindicated. Mainstream historians are forced to reconsider. The government scrambles to explain. Because this isn't just about one memo. This isn't just about one lie. This is about a 62-year cover-up of what the CIA knew about Lee Harvey Oswald before President Kennedy was killed, and why they hid it. Let's go back to where this story really begins. August 9th, 1963. New Orleans, 3 months before Dallas. Lee Harvey Oswald stands on a street corner, handing out pro-Castro pamphlets. Hands off Cuba, they read. Fair play for Cuba Committee. He's alone, no organization behind him. Just one man advocating for Fidel Castro in the middle of one of the most anti-Castro cities in America. It's a strange thing to do. New Orleans is full of Cuban exiles, people who fled Castro's revolution, people who hate everything Castro represents. And here's Oswald, practically begging for confrontation. He gets it. Members of the Directorio Revolucionario Estudiantil, the DRE, a Cuban student exile group, confront him. They argue, they scuffle, the police arrive. Oswald is arrested for disturbing the peace. The local media covers it. Oswald does radio interviews. He's on television. Suddenly, this nobody is getting widespread publicity as a Castro sympathizer. The DRE makes sure everyone knows who Oswald is. They write about him in their newspaper. They paint him as a communist agitator. A threat. 3 months later, Oswald allegedly shoots President Kennedy. And within hours, the DRE publishes the first conspiracy theory. Castro ordered the hit. Oswald was a communist agent. The Cuban government killed the president. How did they know so fast? How were they so prepared? Because someone had been planning this narrative for months. That someone was George Joannides. Who was George Joannides? Born in Greece in 1922. Came to America as a child, law degree, journalist. Then in 1951, he joined the CIA. By 1963, he was deputy chief of the CIA's Miami station. Specifically, he ran the psychological warfare branch. His job? Propaganda, disinformation, manipulating public opinion. And his primary asset was the DRE. The CIA was giving the DRE $25,000 per month, roughly $250,000 in today's money, every month. They funded the student group's newspaper, their radio programs, their propaganda campaigns, and Joannides was their handler, their case officer, the man pulling the strings. But he didn't use his real name. He used an alias, Howard. The students in the DRE knew him only as Mr. Howard, their CIA contact, the man who gave them money and directions. When Lee Harvey Oswald encountered the DRE in August 1963, it wasn't random. It wasn't coincidence. It was an operation, and Joannides was running it. The newly released documents reveal something extraordinary. In July 1963, 1 month before Oswald's public confrontation with the DRE, Joannides received a performance review. It noted he had done an excellent job in the handling of a significant student exile group which hitherto had successfully resisted any important degree of control. Translation: Joannides had finally gotten the DRE under control. They were following orders now. Then in August, Oswald shows up in New Orleans, hands out pro-Castro pamphlets, gets into a public fight with DRE members, gets arrested, gets media coverage, and the DRE uses that coverage to paint Oswald as a dangerous communist. Why would Oswald do this? Why would someone claiming to support Castro deliberately antagonize Castro's most vocal enemies in a way guaranteed to get publicity? Either Oswald was the world's worst activist, or he was following a script. Researchers who've studied Oswald's activities in New Orleans say they bear all the hallmarks of a CIA disinformation operation. Create a public profile, establish a legend, build a paper trail linking someone to communism. Then, if needed, that person becomes a perfect patsy. If this story is blowing your mind and you want to stay updated on revelations like this, subscribe to this channel right now. We're uncovering the truth about history's biggest cover-ups. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what comes next is even more shocking. September 1963. Oswald leaves New Orleans and travels to Mexico City. He visits the Cuban consulate, tries to get a visa to Cuba, then to the Soviet Union. He's angry, desperate. His visa applications are denied. The whole time, the CIA is watching. The CIA's Mexico City station had extensive surveillance on the Cuban and Soviet embassies. Phone taps, hidden cameras, undercover agents. Every person who entered those buildings was photographed. Every phone call was recorded. When Oswald showed up, the CIA knew immediately. Win Scott, the legendary CIA station chief in Mexico City, collected so much intelligence on Oswald's visit that it filled 4 suitcases and several large boxes. Photos, recordings, transcripts, memos. All of it was sent immediately to CIA headquarters in Washington, to the FBI, to the U.S. ambassador in Mexico. Years later, Win Scott wrote in his unpublished memoir, "Every piece of information concerning Lee Harvey Oswald was reported immediately after it was received, and included in each and every one of these reports was the entire conversation Oswald had from the Cuban consulate with the Soviet embassy." The CIA knew about Oswald. They were tracking him. They were documenting everything he did, and they never told the Warren Commission. November 22, 1963, Dallas, Texas. President John F. Kennedy is shot and killed. Lee Harvey Oswald is arrested. Within hours, he's identified as the assassin. And within hours, the DRE, George Joannides' operation, publishes their theory. Castro did it. Oswald was a communist agent. It's almost as if they'd been preparing this narrative for months. The CIA immediately launches an internal investigation. They assign it to John Whitten, a respected officer with no connection to Cuban operations. Whitten begins reviewing files. He discovers the CIA had extensive information on Oswald before the assassination. But then, suddenly, Whitten is removed from the case. James Jesus Angleton, the CIA's counterintelligence chief, takes over. Angleton had a different theory. Oswald was a KGB agent. The Soviets killed Kennedy. All the Mexico City files disappear into Angleton's office. Whitten is shut out. When Win Scott, the Mexico City station chief, retires, he takes his Oswald files home. 4 suitcases, several boxes, his insurance policy. He plans to write a book, expose what really happened. But in 1971, Win Scott dies of a heart attack. The day after his death, CIA agents arrive at his home. They confiscate everything. The files, the tapes, the photographs, his manuscript, all of it vanishes into CIA vaults. His family never sees it again. 1964. The Warren Commission investigates Kennedy's assassination. They ask the CIA, "Did you have any connection to Lee Harvey Oswald?" The CIA says no. No connection, no contact. Never heard of him before Dallas. It's a lie. But the Warren Commission doesn't know that. They conclude Oswald acted alone. Case closed. 1975. The Church Committee investigates CIA abuses. They ask about the Kennedy assassination, about Oswald, about Mexico City. The CIA provides some documents, but not everything. Not the Joannides files. Not the full Mexico City surveillance. Partial disclosure. Controlled revelation. 1977. The House Select Committee on Assassinations is formed. Congress wants answers. Public trust in the government has collapsed. Watergate, Vietnam, CIA assassination plots. The committee demands full access to CIA files on Oswald and the Kennedy assassination. The CIA needs someone to manage the relationship, someone to act as liaison, someone who can control what information gets released. They choose George Joannides. Think about that. The man who ran the operation that had contact with Oswald before the assassination is now the CIA's liaison to the committee investigating that assassination. It's like appointing a suspect to oversee his own investigation. But the committee doesn't know who Joannides really is. The CIA doesn't tell them. The House Committee investigators start digging into the DRE. They learn the student group had CIA connections. They find references to a case officer using the alias Mr. Howard. Dan Hardway and Edwin Lopez, two committee investigators, ask Joannides about it. Do you know who Howard was? Do you have records of CIA officers assigned to the DRE? Joannides looks them in the eye and says, no. No records. No such officer. He'll keep looking, but he can't find anything. He's lying. He is Howard. He ran the DRE. He knows exactly what happened. But he stonewalls, slow walks, document production, misleads the investigators. Robert Blakey, the committee's chief counsel, later testified about this moment. Joannides assured me that they could find no record of any such officer assigned to DRE, but that he would keep looking. Years later, when Blakey discovered the truth, he was furious. Joannides lied to me about who he was and what he knew. The CIA lied to me. That must be part of this record. The House Committee finishes its investigation in 1978. Their conclusion: Kennedy was probably assassinated as a result of a conspiracy. They believe there was a second shooter. They believe Oswald didn't act alone. But they can't prove it. They can't identify who else was involved. The CIA withholds too much, hides too much. The investigation ends. The files are sealed. And George Joannides? 2 years later, in 1981, the CIA awards him the Career Intelligence Medal. For what? For lying to Congress? For covering up the agency's connection to Oswald? The citation doesn't say. The award is classified. Joannides retires, dies in 1990, takes his secrets to the grave. 1992. Congress passes the JFK Records Act. Public pressure has become overwhelming. People want answers. They want transparency. The law mandates that all assassination-related documents be released by October 2017. All of them. No exceptions. An Assassination Records Review Board is created. They work for years declassifying millions of pages. In 1998, they discover George Joannides. They find references to him in CIA files. They realize he was assigned to the DRE. They realize he was Howard. They realize the CIA lied to the House Committee. The review board demands Joannides' full personnel file, his operational records, everything. The CIA refuses. They claim national security. They claim ongoing operations. They claim it's too sensitive. The review board pushes back, takes them to court. The court sides with the CIA. Joannides' files remain sealed. October 2017. The deadline arrives. President Donald Trump is supposed to release all remaining JFK documents. At the last minute, he doesn't. CIA Director Mike Pompeo appeals to him. National security concerns, sensitive sources, irreversible harm. Trump caves, allows continued redactions, pushes the deadline. Some documents are released, but thousands remain withheld or heavily redacted, including the Joannides files. 2021. President Joe Biden postpones release again. The excuse, COVID-19 pandemic. Agencies are overwhelmed. More delays. More broken promises. The researchers don't give up. Jefferson Morley, the Mary Ferrell Foundation, Dan Hardway, the former House Committee investigator. They file lawsuits. Freedom of Information Act requests. They pressure Congress. They know the truth is in those files. January 23rd, 2025. President Trump, in his second term, signs Executive Order 14,176. Declassification of records concerning the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. This time he means it. Or at least, that's what he says. March 2025. The National Archives begins releasing documents. Tens of thousands of pages. Previously withheld. Previously redacted. Then July 5th, 2025. The Joannides file. 40 documents. Personnel records. Operational memos. Performance reviews. And there it is. The Smoking Gun. The January 17th, 1963. Memo directing Joannides to use the alias Howard Gebler. The fitness report from July 1963 praising his control of the DRE. Documentation of the $25,000 monthly payments to the student group. Records showing he was promoted to run political warfare operations in Miami in September 1963, right before Oswald's trip to Mexico City. Everything the CIA denied for 62 years. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, chair of the Declassification Task Force, holds a press conference. The CIA has been lying for 62 years about the assassination of an American president, she says. This changes everything. Robert Blakey, now 86 years old, issues a statement. I no longer believe anything the CIA told us. The agency set me up. They obstructed our investigation. They lied about Joannides. They lied about Oswald. What else did they lie about? Jefferson Morley writes, the official story is dead. We now know the CIA had operational contact with Oswald before the assassination, and they covered it up. This is why you need to subscribe right now, because mainstream media isn't covering this the way they should. They're downplaying it, dismissing it. But we won't. Subscribe to this channel for the truth they don't want you to know. Hit that button. So what does this all mean? Does it prove the CIA killed Kennedy? No, not definitively. Does it prove there was a conspiracy? Not by itself, but it proves the CIA lied, systematically. For decades, they lied to the Warren Commission, to the Church Committee, to the House Select Committee on Assassinations, to the American people. They claimed they had no connection to Oswald. That's false. They claimed they didn't know who Howard was. That's false. They claimed they fully cooperated with investigations. That's false. Every official investigation into the Kennedy assassination was sabotaged by the agency that should have been helping. Why? What were they hiding? If Oswald really was just a lone gunman with no connection to the CIA, why cover up Joannides? Why lie about the DRE? Why withhold the Mexico City surveillance? Why award Joannides a medal for lying to Congress? The CIA's behavior only makes sense if they were hiding something significant, something they couldn't risk being exposed. Here's what we know for certain. In the months before Kennedy was killed, a CIA psychological warfare officer named George Joannides ran an operation involving Lee Harvey Oswald. The operation created a public profile of Oswald as a pro-Castro communist. It generated publicity, media coverage, a documented trail. Then, when Kennedy was shot, that same CIA operation immediately blamed Castro. The first conspiracy theory, that Cuba killed Kennedy, came from Joannides' propaganda operation, within hours of the assassination, as if they'd been planning it. Oswald's trip to Mexico City, where he visited Cuban and Soviet embassies, was monitored extensively by the CIA. 4 suitcases full of intelligence, all reported to Washington immediately. But when investigators asked about it, the CIA claimed they had minimal information. Win Scott, the station chief who collected that intelligence, was going to write a book about it. He died. The CIA confiscated everything. When Congress investigated in the 1970s, the CIA put Joannides in charge of liaising with investigators. The man who ran the pre-assassination operation was put in charge of hiding it. He lied. He obstructed. He was rewarded for it. And for 62 years, the CIA maintained the lie. Until one memo, released in 2025, proved it was all a cover-up. The declassified documents raise more questions than they answer. A CIA whistleblower claims there's an Inspector General report, nearly 50 pages, that describes how the agency deliberately misled Congress about Oswald's Mexico City activities. That report hasn't been released. It may still be classified. The whistleblower says he saw a gray film canister labeled with information about Oswald in Mexico. That canister hasn't been found, or hasn't been disclosed. There are still approximately 4,000 JFK-related CIA documents that contain redactions. What's in them? What are they still hiding? Researchers have identified specific files they want. The full Mexico City Station volumes, the complete Joannides operational files, the Inspector General reports. The CIA says they've complied with the JFK Records Act. They say everything releasable has been released, but they've said that before, and they were lying. In 2014, a Detroit news poll found that 87% of Americans don't believe Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. That number hasn't changed in decades. Most Americans believe there was a conspiracy, that the government knows more than it's telling. And you know what? They're right. The government does know more. The CIA has been hiding it for 62 years. The Joannides memo is proof. It's not proof of who killed Kennedy. It's not a confession. It's not the final answer. But it's proof that the official story is incomplete, that investigations were sabotaged, that lies were told. It's proof that when the CIA says, "Trust us," you shouldn't, because they've been lying to you for 6 decades. And if they lied about Joannides, what else did they lie about? Lee Harvey Oswald never stood trial. He was murdered 2 days after the assassination by Jack Ruby. We'll never hear his testimony, his defense, his explanation. Was he a lone gunman, a patsy, an intelligence asset? We may never know for certain. But we know the CIA was involved with him before Dallas. We know they monitored him, tracked him, used him in operations. We know they covered it up afterward. We know they lied to every investigation. And we know that 62 years later, they're still hiding documents. The JFK assassination isn't ancient history. It's an ongoing cover-up. And the memo they didn't want you to see proves it. On November 22, 1963, President John F. Kennedy was killed in Dallas. The official story: Lee Harvey Oswald, acting alone, shot him from a book depository. The evidence: a rifle, some bullet fragments, eyewitness testimony that conflicts with itself. The investigation, controlled by the same agencies that may have had connections to the accused killer. The result? 62 years of lies, cover-ups, obstructions, and one memo, hidden until 2025, that proves the CIA has been lying the entire time. George Joannides is dead. Win Scott is dead. James Angleton is dead. The men who knew the truth took it to their graves. But the documents remain, slowly, piece by piece, being forced into daylight. Each new release reveals another lie, another cover-up, Another layer of deception. The question isn't whether there was a conspiracy anymore. The question is, what were they conspiring to hide? And when will we finally know the truth?